You're alone on the open ocean. The waves crash ceaselessly to the horizon. And for the past 11 months, it's been your entire universe. But then the radio crackles. A voice comes through. It says, "You're leading. You're winning. You're gonna win. You're gonna win the race." But there's just one small problem. It's not true. It's not even close. The truth is that you're lost, alone, drifting, and you're lying. This was the reality of Donald Crowhurst in the 1968 Golden Globe Round the World race. This race was to see who could sail around the world non-stop the fastest. It could mark the first time human beings have ever actually done this. This was 1968. We went to the moon in 1969. Now the race was simple. 9 sailors from all ports of Britain would leave. They would sail down the Atlantic, loop the Southern Ocean, and come back up the Atlantic. And Robin Knox-Johnson said, sailing around the world, terribly simple from a navigational point of view. You leave England, turn left, go to Cape Town, turn left, come to Cape Horn, turn left, go up the Atlantic, smell fish and chips, turn right. And there's England. Perhaps he was right. But this race, the impetus of this race, was to see who could do it the first and the fastest. Now the first prize could be the first man home. Be the first one to go around the world non-stop, circumnavigate the planet. The second prize, the big prize, was the £5,000 and the world record for being that man to sail around the world non-stop the fastest. This is the one they all wanted. And 9 pixelated sailors signed up. These were big seamen, experienced sailors. But in all of these 9 men, 3 matter to our story. Robin Knox-Johnson. He was the most professionally trained of the 9 men. He had deep water experience. He'd been to the Southern Ocean. He knew what he was getting in for. He had sailed his boat from Mumbai to Britain just a few years earlier. He was disciplined, experienced, and he was one of the favorites to win the race. If I can quote him once more, when they asked him, "Why are you doing this?" he said sardonically, "Well, I first heard that a Frenchman was planning to do it, and I thought, well, it'd be much better if an Englishman did it first, so I decided to go." That's all you need to know about his personality. Next, we have Bernard Mortissier, a Frenchman born in French Indochina. Bernard was a dreamer, a poet, a philosopher. To him, the ocean was home. Robin Knox-Johnson was the most professionally trained, but Bernard Mortissier had the most experience. He had nearly circumnavigated the globe nearly 2 years earlier. He approached this race differently than the rest. He wanted to see if he could do it in his heart. His motivation came from spirit, not from competition. Then, our third man, the mystery man, Donald Crowhurst. Crowhurst was an amateur. He tinkered around on boats. He was barely a weekend sailor. He wasn't known in any racing circle. He had nearly no experience. But he could talk the talk. He sold navigational aids. But he'd never actually done it. But there was something about this race that lit a fire in Donald. It lit it up. It almost compelled him to take part. This was an opportunity for a dream to come true for Donald. He wanted it. And he built momentum. He signed up and miraculously became one of the 9 men. And local newspapers found out about this. And they really latched onto it. They thought, look at this homegrown British hero, this British daring do on a shoestring. Feeding frenzy started. People wanted him to win. The underdog. He was the black horse. And so he got in. But Donald was not rich. He did not come from money. He didn't even have a boat. He actually planned to build his own boat, the trimaran. That's what he's sitting on right here. So he got investors. They invested in him, but investors are not adventurers or dreamers. They're hard-headed businessmen. They wanted a contract. That contract stipulated that if Donald was to pull out of the race before it began, fail to finish the race, that he would be forced to buy back the investment, remortgage his house. Ultimately, it would make Donald and his family destitute, broke. He was risking everything, gambling everything on being successful in the race, and successful meant finishing. Now, it's at this moment I want to ask about dreams. We're all human beings. We all have dreams. This was Donald's. What happens when you vocalize a dream and give it life? What happens when that dream grows and snowballs and grows and grows and snowballs again until it becomes bigger than you? You cannot fail at trying, but you can fail at expectation. The stakes of this race and the investment in it had outgrown Donald. So I ask, during this talk, how do we hold on to the original spirit of why we start something, and how do we keep it as a spark instead of allowing others to dictate its purpose? I'm not here tonight to answer those questions, but to present them to you. Something to think about as we continue this story. So, the race began. The race was unlike any other race at that time. You could leave whenever you want in the season, as long as you left before October the 31st, to avoid the nasty winter weather in the Southern Ocean and the Southern Hemisphere. Now, just to show you how deadly this race could be, within the first few weeks, 2 sailors gone. High seas took them out very fast. Donald Crowhurst saw this, and the stakes rose. In the lead, Robin Knox Johnson, one of our favorites, one of our characters. He buckled down, gritty, every day, showed up on the boat, going as fast as he possibly could. He actually left first, with no investment. He approached every day like he did his life, diligent and focused. Next, Bernard Mortissier was behind him every step of the way. These were the 2 favorites to win. Robin Knox Johnson was doing 100 miles. Bernard Mortissier was doing 120 miles a day. The gap was closing all the time. They were way ahead. They were in the lead. And in the back of the field of 7 men was Donald Crowhurst. Everything he'd staked his dream on had finally begun, but his confidence was unraveling. His boat took on water, his equipment failing. Everything in the boat wasn't working. He had to slow down and try and fix these, but it was too slow. Water was coming into the hull. He had to bail the hull by hand. This was okay now in the calm waters of the North Atlantic. But what happens when he gets to the Southern Ocean? The Southern Ocean, with its icy band of storms that loop the planet just off the coast of Antarctica, it is the only feasible route to circle the planet uninterrupted by landmass. Feared today, even today, by sailors. And a few weeks later, it knocked out 3 more sailors. All of a sudden, we're down to 4. And his boat was floundering. If Donald went into the Southern Ocean, he'd be swept by waves 60 feet, 90 feet. You can't bail out water by hand in those conditions. The holes would fill and he would surely drown. But he can't go back. If he goes back, he's ruined. So, this was his dilemma. 2 options. Was there a third option? Donald chose to lie. Donald chose to lie about the race. Now, I'm not here tonight to judge Donald Crowhurst. I'm not here to condone it. But we ask ourselves, when our dreams develop a life of their own and they become bigger than we are, what would you do to protect them in that current situation? More questions I have for you is, what do we do when we cannot admit a fault if the stakes are too high to admit it? What is the cost, the ultimate cost of dishonesty when you can't turn back? His plan was to sail his boat down the coast of Brazil, along the coast of Argentina, and wait. Just wait. The plan was, when the sailors, the other 3 sailors, would come under Cape Horn and back up the Atlantic for home, he would slip in behind them, coming in last. This way he gets to complete the race, fulfill the contract, go home, not as a winner, but at least he could keep his house and his family. He was fourth, and this is where he wanted to be. When you're fourth, your logbooks are not verified. There's no committee that's going to check and double check that all of your logbooks are correct. He could slip into fourth and thus into oblivion. This was his plan. So he settled in and waited for 11 months alone. And while that was going on, the race continued. Robin Knox-Johnson was still taking the lead, but just barely. And right behind him, the most experienced sailor, Bernard Mortissier, the reckless philosophical Frenchman, was getting closer and closer. Knox-Johnson said about Bernard Mortissier, he said, I had this image of a steely-eyed Frenchman, you know, vive la France, beat the goal, never sleeping, crashing on after me. It was a good prod in the backside to keep moving. And then we have, at this juncture, our 3rd sailor, who's very important at this point in the story. His name was Nigel Tetley, an experienced sailor. He was also a contender. It wasn't sure if he was going to catch up to Robin Knox-Johnson or to Bernard Mortissier. All of them faced the roughest seas in the world in the South Pacific, and they turned round the horn. And then the time had come, after a long 11 months of lying and pretending, Donald Crowhurst would slip in behind them, so a few unforeseen things began to happen. Bernard Mortissier had now been at sea for 6 months, and the isolation was beginning to affect him profoundly. He no longer sailed for competitive reasons. His whole outlook had changed. Later that day, a radio message came into Paris, informing his wife that he had abandoned the race, turned south, and sailed back to the Pacific. Donald is now in 3rd place, 1 step closer to where he does not want to be. 4th place, people don't verify. 3rd place, maybe they do. The stakes rising once again. And as this was happening, Robin Knox-Johnson became the first man to sail non-stop around the world, a complete circumnavigation. And after 312 days, he put feet onto land, he came home a hero. The Golden Globe, he got it. But now, who would be the fastest? Who would get the big prize, the £5,000, the world record holder? Okay? It would either be Nigel Tetley or Donald Crowhurst still battling it out in the mid-Atlantic. One of them was going to become the most famous man in Britain. Once again, this is the worst news for Donald. He doesn't want to be the most famous man in Britain. He knows he can't lie to that extent to a committee of experienced yachtsmen that I sailed around the world and faked it. You can't hide that. He slowed down. He intentionally slowed down and sabotaged his own race already, once again. He sent telegraphs home. No chance to overtake Tetley. He was trying to stay where he was. Newspapermen, his family thought, disappointment, but as far as we're concerned, he's come good. He's been out there alone. It's okay. He's proven his point. We're happy with him. Things are looking up. And then, out of the blue, Tetley sunk. Donald Crowhurst had become the winner and the first man to sail non-stop around the world the fastest. But it was a lie. The papers got into it. They didn't know it was a lie. Headlines, Donald Crowhurst for success. The underdog had did it. 100,000 people were expected to come and greet you home. Everything you've ever wanted. Your tired dreams have come true. Not real. A few weeks from home, in the mid-Atlantic, in the Sargasso Sea, Donald Crowhurst's boat was found drifting, alone, without its captain. In the cabin, there was no evidence of a wave hitting the boat and knocking things over. Everything was intact. There was no evidence of a freak accident, but there was no Donald. Now, we can only assume that the shame got to him. There were 2 logbooks. One detailed a fascinating round-the-world race, the fastest man alive on a boat, and there was another logbook that detailed 11 months of despair, mental degradation, struggle, decay. His body was never found. Now, this story, to me, is about dreams and how we approach them, about ideas and dreams. How do we tackle them? 3 stories. One of diligence and focus and training to the end. Robin Knox Johnson. Another of Bernard Mercier, where you redefine success on your own terms. Bernard was not a winner on paper, but a winner to himself. He redefined what winning was for him. And then Donald Crowhurst. In this, we're taught what silent shipwreck looked like. Now, the tragedy of Crowhurst is not that he failed to sail around the world. The tragedy is that he failed to say, I can't do this. He could never say it. Now, how much of our lives, if we have a dream or just day-to-day life, we think, I can't do this. Teacher, student, parents, people. We all have dreams, we all have ideas. When can we say we can't do it? When does our dreams either die out, become too big? How do we hold on to the essence of those dreams going forward? So, this story and the lessons for tonight I leave you with is what happens when those dreams become too big. And that we have to hold on to them. We have to understand what they mean for us. And we do have to let them sail into oceans. We have to put them through races. And it's the only voyage our dreams must take. Thank you.